All right. Do not be fooled by this right here. Comes in at, a good solid price on the market. I just got done shopping for an RMSC dot, and it's hard to find one that actually has all the good features, and a lot of them come disguised like this, right? The price is good on this, but when I start looking through all the specs, this has a bottom loading battery, and that is a big uh, shitty thing to have for one of these. That means that every time you need to change the battery, you're going to you're going to break the Loctite loose from these screws and unmount this optic to take the battery out of the bottom of it, put a new one in, and then you're going to have to Loctite and put everything back in. For most people, that's going to require, like their workbench. It's not something that you're going to want to do in the field or anywhere else. It takes longer to do. And then after you put your sight back on, you have to re-zero it and just dick around with it. And you're going to have to do that every time the battery dies. Also, you're going to be changing out your mounting screws or bolts, whatever you want to call them. Uh, you're going to have to swap those out a lot more often, right? Because every time you take those things off and put them on with Loctite, you are putting a good amount of strain on them. So it's just not worth it in the end. Like the supplemental cost that you're going to have to pay along the way just to buy new little screws for these things, like actual good ones that hold up to recoil. Um, it's just not worth it for these when you can get a bottom loading, a top loading battery, and all they do is um, obviously cut a cap hole out for the top of this optic so you can get in there and swap your battery out without having to take this thing off your gun. If they're not willing to do that, I'm sorry, it's just not worth it, because then the thing comes with so much more hassle. It's just not worth it in 2025, in my opinion. And there's a lot of these going around, and some of them look pretty good, but they will have like a big flaw like that, in my opinion. The AT3 one didn't have any of that. The other thing about this is it comes with the 2 MOA dot. I would be curious to actually test that thing to make sure. If you're running a 2 MOA dot on one of these, it really has to be daylight bright. It has to be extra bright. You don't want to lose that thing. Um, right, with 3 MOA red dot, you get away with a little bit more without super scorching your dot, just because it's a little bit bigger. It's like in that sweet zone where it's easy to find, yet it's also small enough to put on smaller targets at a distance and not cover them all up. So that's a nice sweet spot. There's less to worry about that with the 3 MOA dot on the AT3 optic, right? And you have the top loading battery. About the only advantage I really see here is this does have dual buttons, so you can cycle up and down in your settings. I do actually like the simplicity of the AT3 having just one button. There's only 6 settings on it, plus an auto setting that you can click over to by holding the button a certain way. I think it works very well, and it's very simplistic, and it works, right? It'd be nice to have 2 buttons, but either way, what are you gonna do? It works just fine. I will take that optic for this same price, with the fact that it has a top loading battery. Uh, but this thing came close, and I wanted to give it an honorable mention here. At least Primary Arms looks like it's trying to do something. In reality, they could have made this much better. It is a very simple looking optic. It's like the same shape as my AT3. I don't see anything else that really sets it apart. Probably made in the same shops damn near over there. So, but just word to the wise, make sure to actually read uh, the specs on these things, because a lot of times they will look good, but it'll kind of hide the fact that there's a battery that's a pain in the ass to get to, right? Also, if you get anything that has a rechargeable battery, just remember, when that rechargeable battery dies, you can't swap it. So on some of these more expensive optics, make sure you have some kind of warranty so you can send that thing back in and they can put a new battery in there for you if it's a rechargeable. But that is one of the upsides to using these things that run on little coin batteries. they've become so efficient at this point in like 2025 that you really can get a lot out of a coin battery, and you can always swap them on the go without, hopefully taking the optic off of the gun. And then as long as you can keep buying coin batteries, that optic is good to go, right? That's the only downside to rechargeables is we can't exactly swap rechargeables. Not on a lot of things like this yet. Whoops, didn't want to show that. Anyway, look out for stuff like that. And that's why I ended up going over at AT3 because, I mean, their little micro green dot checked every box, right? It was just waterproof enough. The reticle was perfect. It had the core settings that I felt like I actually needed on a carry optic, and really didn't have none of the extra bullshit, no extra buttons, no, no exotic shape, no crazy huge window, right? The thing is just perfect, and it's also the perfect price. And that is something that this optic matched, was the price, and that was impressive alone. But then again, when I start digging into the actual features, right, AT3 is just offering a lot more for your dollar for this thing. So keep an eye out for those if you're shopping for an RMSC. RMR is a little bit different. There's just a lot more RMR optics out there, right? The RMSC pattern is a smaller optic pattern. And what I've noticed is a lot of brands will put out a few RMR optics and then they'll just have like one RMSC option. So yeah, those become a little bit harder to shop for. And I'm just glad I found something that was, just damn near perfect. Anyway, wanted to share that with you guys. Happy hunting, and look out for this. Be careful, right? Because this might not be what you actually want, but it looks good on the surface. Later.